In this video presentation, we will attempt at understanding Dream Children, a Reverie by Charles Lamb. Now, what is the meaning of reverie? Reverie basically is a meditative state. Whenever you dive deep into your thoughts, so deep that you forget about your surroundings, then it becomes a reverie. Okay, so let's start this chapter. Then you will come to know why this chapter is titled Dream Children, a Reverie. That's a suspense. But first, let's start the chapter. But before that, let's know about dreams. Why? Because it is quite fundamental to the concept of this chapter. Dreams are strange. Now, why are dreams strange? Dreams reveal our repressed emotions. Now, what is the meaning of repressed? Those emotions that we don't express generally, those thoughts, those opinions, those emotions which are either too dark or make us look too vulnerable, those emotions that we don't express are known as our repressed emotions. So those things that you don't express in daytime to others, those things come as visuals in your dreams. These are indirect expression. Now, what is the meaning of indirect expressions? These things, they do not come to you directly. What I want to say is that when you have a dream about any of your feeling, you won't find things as they were in the daytime, as they are in actuality. For example, if someone is losing control in his business, that person won't necessarily have a dream about his business only. That person might have a dream about falling from stairs. Okay, so this is a very common dream that people have about falling from stairs, falling from a building, falling from some great height. When interpreted, this dream means that you are losing control over something. This could be your business, your life, your marriage, anything. This could be. Sigmund Freud has said in his study about dreams, he has said that the dreams about falling from heights basically means that you are realizing that you are losing control over something important in your life. Similarly, if you have a feeling that you are not doing enough in your life, if you feel this constantly that you are not doing enough in your life, then what kind of dream would you have? You would have a dream like forgetting to prepare for the exam. This is also a very common dream. People have this dream many times. They suddenly have a dream that they are standing in an examination hall and they haven't prepared for their exam. Sometimes they don't even know what the subject is. For some, this is a reality, you know. For some students, it's a reality. They march to their examination halls without any preparation but with full courage. But for some, it's a nightmare when they have such a dream that they are standing in an examination hall and they haven't prepared for their exam. So this dream basically represents your hidden emotion which yells at you every day that you are not doing enough in your life. Now this dream can be viewed by many people, not necessarily just by school students. Even people at age of 32, 33, 40, they have such nightmares about not preparing for the exam, and then they realize that okay, I am not in school, I am not in college, I am not supposed to take any test, but still they have such dreams. So what I am trying to tell you here is that dreams are strange and they show your repressed emotions in some indirect form. Now why am I telling this to you? This you will realize by the time we end this chapter. So let's start. Dream Children of Reverie has been written by Charles Lamb. This guy. Now, Charles Lamb was very famous. He was known as Prince of English Literature and he suffered incessantly in his life. So, what were his sufferings? His sufferings have affected his writing, and this particular essay that you are going to read is an expression of his muddled emotions. What is the meaning of muddled emotions? He is confused about many things. Now, what are these things? This essay was written after the death of his elder brother, and there were several other sorrows that affected Lamb all through his life. Those things muddled his thoughts and rendered him this bizarre dream. This particular essay that you are going to read is a description of a dream he has. This is all a dream, so do not try to find logical meaning in this chapter. Things are going to be bizarre, they are going to be strange, because just like our dreams, even our dreams don't make sense most of the time. Similarly, this dream is going to be bizarre. But why was he witnessing such a bizarre dream? Because there were several things which were bothering him. One of those things was sour relationship with his brother. Charles Lamb had had a very nice relationship with his brother in childhood, but later on in his life, his relationship had gone bitter, and there was a distance, emotional distance between these two guys. And after the death of his brother, those emotions, that repentance of not having respected or valued his brother as much he must have deserved, those feelings of guilt muddled the thoughts of Charles Lamb. Second thing that troubled him a lot was his unrequited love. Unrequited love means adhuri prem kahani. So Charles Lamb had fallen in love with a woman whom he could not attain in his life. He could not marry that woman. Now that sorrow also affected his writing. And there was one more thing which affected his writing, was death of a close friend. Although it is not shown in this particular chapter, but Charles Lamb was deeply affected by the death of a very close friend of his, and he wrote a book about that also. But that's not in your course. Right now, we need to know that Charles Lamb's psyche was affected by many sorrowful incidents. These were the incidents that I have listed. Let's start. Children loved to listen to stories about their elders. When they were children, to stretch their imagination to the conception of a traditionary great uncle or grandame whom they never saw. It was in this spirit that my little ones crept about me the other evening to hear about their great grandmother Field, who lived in a great house in Norfolk, 100 times bigger than that in which they and Papa lived, which had been the scene. So at least it was generally believed in that part of the county of the tragic incidents which they had lately become familiar with from the ballet of Children in the Woods. Now, basically, you would find in this chapter that this chapter is full of paraphrases. There is a lack of short sentences. Most of the sentences are a paragraph long. Why? Because he keeps on using paraphrases and paraphrases. But let me explain this to you, that the author is saying that children love to listen about stories of their elders. Children of 5 to 10 years of age, they love listening to stories about their family members, especially about the older ones, because the world which the older ones lived in was very different from the world they are living in. So the children of the author, he has two children, John and Alice. Both of them crept to him, they tiptoed to him, they came to him very slowly, and they asked him to tell them the story of their great grandmother Field. They wanted to know about their great grandmother. Great grandmother means the author's grandmother and the children's great grandmother, Pardadi. And the author started telling them about their great grandmother Field. She used to live in Norfolk in a great house. The house was 100 times bigger than the house in which the author and his children lived. The house was a great mansion, and it was in Norfolk. Now, Norfolk was something known to the kids because they had heard the story of Children in the Wood. The this Children in the Woods is a ballet. Now, what's a ballet? It's a poem or a song in which a long story is narrated. So the children knew about Norfolk from this particular story. तो हिंदी में समझा देता हूँ कि एक शाम ऑथर के बच्चे जॉन और एलिस, उनका बेटा जॉन और उनकी बेटी एलिस उनके पास आए और उन्होंने रिक्वेस्ट की कि उन्हें उनकी परदादी के बारे में सुनना है. ऑथर ने उन्हें बताया कि उनकी परदादी, जिनका नाम फील्ड था, वो नॉर्फॉल्क के एक बड़े से मैंशन में रहा करती थी. बच्चों को नॉर्फॉल्क के बारे में कहाँ से पता था? उन्होंने चिल्ड्रन इन द वुड्स नाम का एक बैले सुन रखा था. ये चिल्ड्रन इन द वुड्स का पोस्टर, दिस इज द पोस्टर ऑफ चिल्ड्रन इन वुड्स. Not a poster, it's a glimpse of that ballet. You can see two children lying dead under a tree, and these two birds are coming there with leaves in their beaks. In this story, the children had actually died of starvation in the jungle, in woods, and their dead bodies were covered with leaves by redbreasts. These were birds, little birds. They covered the dead bodies of these children with leaves. It was a very sad ballet. I haven't read it, but I can say that it was sad. Come on, it's a sad climax. Certain it is that the whole story of the children and their cruel uncle was to be seen fairly carved out in wood upon the chimney piece of the great hall. The whole story, down to Robin Redbreasts, tell a foolish rich person pulled it down to set up a marble one of modern invention in its stead, with no story upon it. Sorry, here Alice put out one of her dear mother's looks, too tender to be called upbraiding. Now, what is the meaning of this paragraph? The author tells that the complete story of ballet of children in the woods was supposed to be carved out on wood, which was on the chimney pot of a great hall. So in some great hall, now this great hall could be of the mansion in which the great grandmother Field lived, or this could be some other great hall. So in a great hall, on the chimney, the complete story of children in the woods was carved out in wood. But then what happened? A rich person, whom the author calls foolish, he replaced that particular portion and put a marble showpiece over there, or replaced the wood with marble. And on marble, the story was not mentioned. So the complete story of the children starving, dying, and then being covered by leaves brought by robin redbreasts, it was distorted. Listening to this, the little girl, Alice, she made up a face. The face was like her mother. The kind of expression her mother would give on getting angry, the same expression she tried to make. But her face was too tender to be called upbraiding. It means that her face was too delicate, too innocent to be considered that she was making a scolding face. Okay, she was a very cute little girl. So whenever she would make a face of being angry, she looked even cuter. So the author, let's understand this in Hindi also. ऑथर बताते बताते एक ग्रेट हॉल के बारे में बताने लगते हैं. जैसे उन्होंने बैले ऑफ चिल्ड्रन इन वुड्स का जिक्र किया, शायद उनका, क्योंकि ये सपना चल रहा है, उनके विचार शायद ड्रिफ्ट हो गए, किसी दूसरी दिशा में चले गए, और उनको याद आया कि एक चिमनी के ऊपर पूरी कहानी लिखी गई थी, और कहानी जो थी कार्व आउट की गई थी, लिखी नहीं गई थी, कार्व आउट की गई थी. उसके चित्र बनाए गए थे लकड़ी के ऊपर, गोद गोद के चिमनी के ऊपर जो लकड़ी थी उसके ऊपर ये सारे चित्र बना बना के पूरी कहानी को डिपिक्ट किया गया था. और फिर किसी मूर्ख इंसान ने उस जगह में से लकड़ी हटवा के मार्बल रखवा दिया, जिससे कहानी जो है वो खराब हो गई. कहानी का क्लाइमैक्स तो दिखना ही बंद हो गया. इस लाइन में अगर आप नोटिस करें, द ऑथर हैज यूज्ड कैपिटल पी फॉर पर्सन इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग स्मॉल पी. पर्सन तो कॉमन नाउन होता है. देन व्हाई इज द ऑथर यूजिंग कैपिटल पी? परहैप्स द ऑथर नोज द पर्सन. परहैप्स द पर्सन इज बार्ट्रम एंड ही इज ट्राइंग टू टॉन्ट दैट पर्सन. अभी बार्ट्रम कौन है? बार्ट्रम को ताना मार रहे हैं शायद. देखो, ये सिर्फ एक अजम्पशन है कि ऑथर शायद उस पर्सन को जानते हैं जिसने मार्बल लगवा दिया वहां पे, और शायद ऑथर उसको ताना मार रहे हैं, और शायद वो व्यक्ति बार्ट्रम है. अब बार्ट्रम कौन है ये तो तुम्हें कहानी के अंत में पता चलेगा. बट लेट्स मूव फर्दर विद द स्टोरी. Then I went on to say how religious and how good their great grandmother Field was, how beloved and respected by everybody, though she was not indeed the mistress of the great house, but had only the charge of it, and yet in some respects she might be said to be the mistress of it too, committed to her by the owner, who preferred living in a newer and more fashionable mansion which he had purchased somewhere in the adjoining county. But still she lived in it in a manner as if it had been her own, and kept up the dignity of the great house in a sort while she lived, which afterwards came to decay, and was nearly pulled down, and all its ornaments stripped and carried away to the owner's other house, where they were set up, and looked as awkward as if someone were to carry away the old tombs they had seen lately in the abbey and stick them up in Lady C's tawdry gilt drawing room. Here John smiled, as much as to say, that would be foolish indeed. So what happens here is that the author continues telling about great grandmother Field. He tells that great grandmother Field was not the mistress of the great house. Where she lived, she was not the mistress, the owner of that house. She was not the owner of that house. But in many respects, in many ways, she was no less than the mistress. Why is the author saying so? Because she took care of the house with so much diligence that she could be considered as the owner of that house. She took care of that house with dedication, with diligence, with sincerity. And when she died, the house was nearly taken down. Why? Most of the things were stripped away. The ornaments of the house, the decorative things were taken away, and they were taken away to the adjoining county where the owner lived. The owner of the house, he lived in a modern mansion in the adjoining county. Now what's a county? It's a territorial division of some country, okay, some city it was, and the name of that county has not been mentioned. It was near Norfolk. The ornaments of the house were taken there. What is the meaning of ornaments? Decorative pieces, show pieces, chandeliers, furniture, curtains, tapestry, most of the things that decorate a house, those ornamental things were taken away from this great mansion to the modern apartment where the owner lived. And the author says that it looked awkward there. It looked awkward there. Why? Because the tonality changed, na? The ornaments of the great mansion were antique. The house was modern where they were taken to. So now they were not matching with each other. So they were looking awkward. And the author compares it to taking tombstones to Lady C's tawdry gilt drawing room. Now, who is Lady C? This is not clear. She might be some rich lady without any sense of aesthetics, only knowing how to spend money and decorate the house, still failing at it miserably. That's why he uses the word tawdry gilt drawing room. What is the meaning of tawdry gilt? A house where decorative pieces are there, but they are not looking good, they are looking cheap. It is looking as if the person has recently become rich and is spending all his money just to decorate the house in a very senseless manner. So the author is saying that as if tombstones would be placed in a house and look awkward, the ornaments in the modern house were looking awkward. Why? Because they were not matching with the tonality of the house. I think I should explain this in Hindi. तो फिर क्या हुआ, ऑथर ने बताया कि ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड जो थी वो भले ही उस ग्रेट मैंशन की मालकिन नहीं थी, वो सिर्फ एक केयर टेकर थी, लेकिन वो कई मायनों में उस घर की मालकिन की जैसी ही थी, मालकिन से कम नहीं थी। क्यों? क्योंकि वो उस घर का ख्याल इतनी शिद्दत से रखती थी जैसे वो उस घर की मालकिन हो। ओनर जो थे वो खुद तो एक मॉडर्न मैंशन में रहते थे, नॉरफॉल्क के पास में एक शहर काउंटी में रहते थे, वो एक अलग ही जगह पर मॉडर्न से घर में रहते थे, और ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड यहाँ पर उस घर का ख्याल रखती थी, और वो घर का ख्याल इतने अच्छे से रखती थी कि आपको एक बार के लिए धोखा हो जाएगा कि वही उस घर की मालकिन है। जब ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड की डेथ हुई तब वो घर ने अपनी पूरी खूबसूरती खो दी, क्योंकि उस घर की जितनी भी सुंदर चीजें थी उन्हें ओनर के नए घर पे भेज दिया गया, और ओनर के नए घर में वो सब एंटीक चीजें बहुत ही बुरी लग रही थी, ऑकवर्ड सी लग रही थी। सो इस वजह से आप और कह सकते हो कि ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड जो थी वो मालकिन से कम नहीं थी उस घर के। And then I told how, when she came to die, her funeral was attended by a concourse of all the poor and some gentry too, of the neighborhood for many miles round, to show their respect for her memory, because she had been such a good and religious woman. So good, indeed, that she knew all the psaltery by heart and a great part of Testament besides. So the author continued praising his grandmother Field. He told that when she died, her funeral was attended by not only the poor people, but by the rich people also. What is the meaning of gentry? Rich, elites. And what is the meaning of concourse? A large number of people. A huge group of people attended her funeral to pay their respect, their condolences. Why? Because she was much respected in the area she lived. And why was she respected? Because she was a very religious lady. She had learnt by heart psaltery also. Now what is psaltery? It's a collection of hymns in the Bible, the religious verses. She had learnt them also, and she had learnt Testament also. So she was a very religious lady. That's why she earned a lot of respect from the people who knew her. ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड का इतना सम्मान था कि जब उनकी मृत्यु हुई तब उनके शव यात्रा में, उनके अंतिम संस्कार में बहुत सारे लोग आए, ना केवल गरीब लोग बल्कि अमीर लोग भी आए। इससे साबित होता है कि उनकी काफ़ी रिस्पेक्ट थी, और उनकी रिस्पेक्ट इसलिए थी क्योंकि वो एक बहुत ही रिलीजियस लेडी थी जिनको सॉल्ट्री भी याद थी और टेस्टामेंट भी याद थे, यानी उनको बाइबल के अंदर की कई ऐसी चीज़ें याद थी जो हर किसी को याद नहीं होती। इस वजह से उनका बड़ा सम्मान था। Here little Alice spread her hands. Then I told what a tall, upright, graceful person their great grandmother Field once was, and how in her youth she was esteemed the best dancer. Here, little Alice's little right foot played an involuntary movement, till, upon my looking grave, it desisted. The best dancer, I was saying, in the country, till a cruel disease called a cancer came and bowed her down with pain. But it could never bend her good spirits or make them stoop, but they were still upright because she was so good and religious. Then the author tells that the grandmother was a very famous dancer in her young days. She was a very famous dancer. She was esteemed the best dancer. What is the meaning of esteemed? She was considered respectfully to be the best dancer in that region. And then what happened? She was diagnosed with cancer. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, she stopped dancing. But cancer could not break her spirit. Cancer definitely caused her a lot of physical pain. But her dignity, her rules to live by, her diligence towards her work, her religious practices, those could not be deterred. So she kept on doing those things. By the way, when the author said that grandmother was a great dancer, little Alice started dancing also. Her little right foot started moving involuntarily. And then the author looked at her gravely, seriously, and then she stopped doing that. Perhaps she was trying to impress her father or she was getting carried away. Whatever it was, but क्यूट. तो हुआ ये कि ग्रैंड मदर फील्ड के बारे में ऑथर ने बताया कि जब वो जवान थी तो वो बहुत ही अच्छी डांसर थी, उन्हें बेस्ट डांसर का खिताब दिया गया था, और उसके बाद उन्हें कैंसर हो गया. कैंसर ने उनको शारीरिक कष्ट तो बहुत दिया, लेकिन वो उन्हें तोड़ नहीं पाया. उनके उसूल, उनके सिद्धांत और उनके काम को लेकर जो सिंसेरिटी थी, डिलीजेंस था, उसको नहीं तोड़ पाया. वो रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिसेस भी उतनी ही शिद्दत से करती रही और इस वजह से उनका सम्मान बरकरार रहा. इस सब के बारे में सुनते हुए एलिस ने थोड़ा सा नाचने की कोशिश की जब उसने सुना कि दादी माँ बहुत अच्छी डांसर थी, लेकिन फिर ऑथर ने उसको सीरियसली देखा और फिर एलिस ने डांस करना बंद कर दिया. Then I told how she was used to sleep by herself in a lone chamber of the great lone house, and how she believed that an apparition of two infants was to be seen at midnight gliding up and down the great staircase near where she slept. But she said those innocents would do her no harm. And how frightened I used to be, though in those days I had my maid to sleep with me, because I was never half so good or religious as she, and yet I never saw the infants. Then the author says that in childhood, when he would spend some time with grandmother, the great grandmother Field, she was so religious that she was not even afraid of ghosts. She used to say that an apparition, what is an apparition? A dark, indistinct outline shape of ghost like shape used to be visible in nights. She could see those two little kids ka outline moving up and down the stairs. And moving matlab not climbing up and down, sliding up and down. Now that's a horrific visual. So the grandmother used to see those, but she was not afraid of those apparitions also. She was not afraid of ghosts because she was religious. She said that those innocents would do her no harm. But the author, he was afraid. So he would never sleep alone. He would sleep with a maid because he was not religious. He was not as religious. He was not even half as religious as the grandmother. ऑथर कहते हैं कि ग्रैंड मदर जो है उनको छुट्टियों में अपने पास ग्रेट मैंशन में वक्त बिताने देती थी, रुकने देती थी, और ग्रैंड मदर अकेली सोती थी, लोन चेम्बर में, अकेले कमरे में अकेली सोती थी. और वो कहती थी कि रात को दो साए दिखते हैं, दो छोटे बच्चों के साए दिखते हैं सीढ़ियों पे ऊपर नीचे स्लाइड करते हुए, ग्लाइड करते हुए, चलते हुए नहीं, फिसलते से. लेकिन वो डरती नहीं थी, वो अकेले सो जाती थी. लेकिन ऑथर को बहुत डर लगता था, इसलिए वो दाई माँ या बाई के साथ सोते थे, क्योंकि वो तो बिल्कुल भी रिलीजियस नहीं थे. वो तो अपनी दादी माँ के आधे बराबर भी रिलीजियस नहीं थे. एंड इन दिस वे आई थिंक आई हैव कंप्लीटेड द पोर्शन दैट आई टॉट यू टुडे. आई होप दिस वाज हेल्पफुल. इफ नॉट, यू कैन कॉन्टैक्ट मी.